The grand chamber of the unified Galactic Council fell silent as Admiral Marcus Drake stood alone before the towering semicircle of alien representatives. 57 species, each controlling vast regions of space, looked down upon the sole human with a mixture of contempt, curiosity, and thinly veiled fear. Massive holographic displays projected Drake's calm face across the chamber, which resembled an immense amphitheater carved from luminescent blue crystal. The accusations against your species are numerous and grave, Admiral Drake, announced High Counselor Viridian, a tall, willowy being with iridescent skin that shifted colors with her emotions, currently a deep crimson of anger. Humanity has violated 14 primary directives and 37 substitutes of galactic law in the mere 8 decades since your discovery of faster-than-light travel. Drake, a weathered man in his 60s with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles, remained unflinching. Behind him stood a small delegation of humans: Dr. Alara Winter, Earth's foremost xenobiologist; Commander Toshiro Nakamura, tactical genius of the United Earth Defense Force; and Ambassador Nadia Okafor, whose diplomatic skills had delayed this judgment for years. The council chamber's massive screens displayed evidence of human transgressions: unauthorized colonization of disputed systems, refusal to surrender technologies deemed too dangerous for a young species, and most damning, the destruction of a Krell warship that had attempted to blockade Earth's Jupiter outpost 3 years prior. For 10,000 cycles, the Council has maintained peace among the stars, continued Viridian, her voice echoing throughout the chamber. Your species arrived merely a century ago and has rejected every directive, exploited every loophole, and defied every restriction placed upon you. A low murmur rippled through the chamber as the representatives of 57 civilizations, some millions of years old, voiced their agreement. You were ordered to restrict your expansion to your home system, said Counselor Zarn of the Eltharian Dominion, a massive being encased in an exoskeleton of living metal. You now occupy 17. You were forbidden from developing quantum-fold weaponry, added Counselor Trelk, a crystalline entity whose voice resonated like struck crystal. Our sensors detected such weapons on your frontier outposts. And most severely, Viridian's voice cut through the chamber, you were expressly prohibited from building capital ships exceeding Class 3 specifications. Yet we have reports of vessels in your territory that rival our own Guardian-class defenders. Drake took a measured step forward, and subtle tension rippled through the chamber. The guards, biomechanical constructs called Sentinels, shifted their positions slightly. High Counselor Viridian, esteemed members of the Council, Drake began, his voice steady and resonant. For 80 years, humanity has petitioned for full membership in this council. For 80 years, we have been denied, restricted, and treated as children among the stars. He gestured to the evidence displays. You call these transgressions. We call them survival. The Krell vessel fired first after demanding we surrender a civilian research station. The quantum-fold technologies you fear, developed after the Naraxian plague nearly wiped out our colony on Proxima Centauri, a plague we later discovered was engineered. Gasps and angry outbursts erupted from several counselors. Drake raised his voice slightly, commanding attention. Earth has voted unanimously. We will no longer petition for membership in a council that refuses to treat us as equals. We withdraw our applications effective immediately. The chamber erupted in chaos. Viridian's skin flashed brilliant white with shock. This is unprecedented. Withdrawal is not permitted once proceedings have begun, she declared. The Council's judgment will be rendered and humanity will comply or face immediate sanctions. Drake's communicator pulsed silently against his wrist. He exchanged a quick glance with Commander Nakamura, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. There's something else you should know, Drake said, his voice cutting through the uproar. The chamber's adaptive acoustics carried his words to every corner. Humanity didn't come alone. At that precise moment, the Council's security systems blared to life. The massive defensive shields that had protected the galactic core for millennia activated automatically. On every display in the chamber, the same image appeared. The darkness of space above the Council homeworld, now filled with hundreds of warships of unmistakably human design, their running lights illuminating sleek, predatory hulls. We came prepared for your judgment, Counselor Viridian, Drake said softly. The question is, were you prepared for ours? The council chamber descended into pandemonium. Councilors shouted orders to their aides, security forces mobilized, and Viridian's skin cycled through a spectrum of colors reflecting shock, rage, and, most satisfyingly to Drake, fear. This is an act of war. Councilor Zarn boomed, his metal exoskeleton clanging as he rose to his full height. You dare threaten the council? The combined might of 57 spacefaring civilizations? Drake remained calm, even as the Sentinel guards moved to surround the human delegation. Ambassador Okafor stepped forward, her deep voice carrying authority despite her small stature. This is not a threat but a demonstration of our resolve, she stated. For too long, humanity has been subjected to restrictions no other species faces. We come with strength so our words cannot be dismissed. Clear the skies immediately, Viridian commanded, her voice trembling slightly. Withdraw your vessels or face immediate retaliation from the combined defense fleet. Drake smiled thinly. Your defense fleet is currently engaged in training exercises in the Cygnus sector. 4 days travel time, even at maximum FTL. We made sure of that before we arrived. Dr. Winter touched a small device on her wrist. Projecting a holographic star map in the center of the chamber, it displayed the positions of major military forces throughout the Council-controlled space. The map confirmed Drake's statement. The Council's main fleet was indeed far from their homeworld. How did you... Viridian began, then stopped abruptly, comprehension dawning on her features. Your security protocols have weaknesses, Commander Nakamura said, speaking for the first time. His voice was quiet but carried throughout the chamber. We've had access to your military deployment schedules for years. The revelation sent another shockwave through the assembly. Council races prided themselves on technological superiority over younger species like humans. What do you want? Councilor Trelk asked, crystalline features refracting light as they shifted in agitation. State your demands so we may end this farce. Drake looked at each council member in turn, making eye contact with as many as possible. We want 3 things. First, humanity's recognition as a full and equal member of the galactic community, with all rights and privileges that entails. Some councilors nodded reluctantly. This demand, while bold, was not unexpected. Second, an independent investigation into Council activities regarding emerging species over the past 1,000 years, with particular attention to technologies classified as restricted. This caused more murmuring. Several of the elder races exchanged worried glances, and third, Drake paused, ensuring he had everyone's attention. We want access to the Founder's archives. The chamber went completely silent. Even Viridian seemed momentarily speechless. Impossible, she finally whispered. No species has been granted access since the Council's formation. Those archives are sealed by covenant and law. Yet they exist, Drake pressed, and they contain the true history of this galaxy and the Council's formation. We believe all species have a right to that knowledge. You know not what you ask, Zarn rumbled, genuine concern in his voice. Some knowledge is restricted for the safety of all. That's what we've been told for 80 years, Ambassador Okafor interjected. Always protection.
Always safety.
Always at the cost of our autonomy. Drake's communicator chimed again. He checked it and nodded to his team. Our ships are now in position around every major Council facility in this system. We are prepared to maintain this stance indefinitely. You cannot blockade the Council homeworld, Viridian exclaimed. Why not? Drake asked simply. You've blockaded human worlds 3 times in the past decade. When we objected, we were told it was the Council's right to ensure compliance with galactic law. He smiled thinly. We're fast learners, Counselor. The tension in the chamber was palpable. For the first time in thousands of years, the Council faced a species that had not only defied them, but had the means and will to force a reckoning. The Council will convene privately to consider your requests, Viridian finally said, her skin settling into a muted blue of forced calm. As the counselors filed out through hidden exits, Drake turned to his team. Their expressions mixed determination with concern. Think they'll agree? Nakamura asked quietly. They don't have much choice, Drake replied. But remember, this is just phase 1. The real challenge begins when they discover why we want those archives. Ambassador Okafor nodded grimly. And when they learn what we already know about what's hidden there. Admiral Lyra Voss stood on the command deck of the Defiance, Earth's flagship, watching the massive Council homeworld on the main view screen. Her vessel hung in space alongside hundreds of other human warships, creating a show of force unlike anything the galaxy had seen from Earth before. Voss was tall and imposing with dark skin, close-cropped silver hair, and cybernetic enhancements visible along her left temple, scars from the Battle of Proxima that had claimed her eye and half her face. "Status report," she ordered, eyes never leaving the swirling blue-green planet below. "Council defense grid remains active but not targeting our vessels," reported her tactical officer. "Their orbital platforms are on high alert. Ground-based ion cannons are powered but not aligned." Voss nodded. "And our forces?" "All ships maintain position. Quantum shields at maximum. Weapon systems hot but safe." The Admiral allowed herself a small smile. The Council races had always viewed humans as technologically inferior, dangerous children who needed to be controlled. They never expected this level of coordination, this show of strength. The plan, years in the making, was working. Her communication officer turned from his station. "Admiral, incoming transmission from the surface. It's Admiral Drake." "On screen," Voss ordered, straightening her uniform. Drake's face appeared, tension visible in his eyes despite his composed expression. "Phase 1 complete," he said without preamble. "The Council is in emergency session. They're rattled, Lyra. For the first time, we've got them off balance." "Good," Voss replied. "Any complications?" "Nothing unexpected. They're outraged, threatened to summon the defense fleet, which is conveniently 4 days away," Voss finished with satisfaction. "Commander Nakamura's intelligence was perfect." Drake nodded. "We need to move to Phase 2. Dr. Winter is ready to present the evidence." "Is the package secure?" Voss glanced at a heavily guarded door at the rear of the bridge. "Our guest is secure and cooperative. Apparently the promise of revenge is quite motivating." "Excellent. Stand by for my signal. Drake out." As the transmission ended, Voss turned to her bridge crew. "This is the moment we've worked toward for decades. Stay sharp. If the Council decides to test our resolve, I want an immediate response, measured but unmistakable." Inside the Council's private chamber, away from public feeds and diplomatic observers, the true power brokers of galactic politics argued fiercely. The room was smaller than the Grand Assembly Hall, a perfect circle with a table of the same shape at its center. The walls shifted colors subtly, responding to the emotional energies of those present. "We cannot give in to these demands." Councillor Zarn slammed his metallic appendage against the table. "If we show weakness now, every emerging species will think they can threaten their way to power." "They already have power," countered Councillor Thelax, a blue-skinned being with 4 arms and eyes that saw beyond the normal spectrum. "That's what you refuse to acknowledge. Humanity has accomplished in decades what took most of us centuries. All the more reason they must be controlled," Viridian responded, her skin pulsing with dark red patterns. "Their development is dangerously accelerated. Give them access to the archives, and within a generation, they could surpass even the founder races." The debate continued until a soft chime interrupted. The Council's chief security officer, a reptilian being named Morg, entered. "High Councilors," he began, voice gravelly. "The human delegation requests to present new evidence they claim is relevant to their petition." "Evidence?" Viridian's colors shifted to yellow surprise. "What evidence could possibly justify their actions today?" "They wouldn't say, High Councilor, but they insist it pertains to the safety of all Council worlds." The Councilors exchanged glances. Curiosity warred with indignation. "Very well," Viridian finally said. "Bring them in." Minutes later, Drake entered, followed by Dr. Winter carrying a secure data module. Commander Nakamura and Ambassador Okafor remained outside, guarded by sentinels. "This had better be significant, Admiral," Viridian warned. Dr. Winter stepped forward. She was younger than Drake, with keen eyes and the confident movements of someone thoroughly comfortable with alien environments. "What I'm about to show you was obtained at great cost. 5 of our best operatives died securing this data." She placed the module on the center of the table. It projected a holographic display showing a star system unfamiliar to most present. "This is Outpost 47, in what you call the Deferred Development Zone. According to Council records, it's an automated research station studying primitive pre-FTL civilizations." The image zoomed in. revealing a massive installation far larger than any research outpost should be. 3 months ago, one of our long-range exploration vessels detected unusual energy signatures from this facility. Energy patterns consistent with banned technologies, specifically directed evolution acceleration. Several counselors shifted uncomfortably. Viridian's skin darkened. These are serious accusations, Doctor. Evolutionary manipulation was banned by the Fourth Conquered. Yes, Winter agreed. Banned 8,000 years ago after the Chilari incident. Yet here's what our infiltration team found before they were killed. The hologram changed to show laboratory facilities. Inside massive tanks floated beings of various species, all connected to machinery that pulsed with sickly green energy. You're experimenting on sentient beings, Drake said flatly, accelerating their evolution artificially, then harvesting the resulting biological advancements. This is a deception, Zarn declared. These images could be fabricated. Winter smiled thinly. We expected that response. She touched the module again. Which is why we brought proof. The door slid open and Commander Nakamura entered, escorting a being whose species was unrecognizable, humanoid but with translucent skin revealing a complex network of luminescent veins. Its eyes were too large, its limbs too long. This is Vex, Winter explained. He was a member of the Adari species from the Outer Rim. His entire civilization was classified as pre-technological and placed under Council protection 40 years ago. He is the result of your evolutionary acceleration program. The being stepped forward, regarding the Council members with eyes that glowed with inner light. You took us, Vex said, voice resonating strangely. Thousands of my people told us you were bringing us to the stars. Instead, you brought us to tanks and needles and pain. The Council chamber fell silent. Several members looked genuinely shocked. Others seemed merely concerned at the exposure. Viridian recovered first. These are grave accusations that require investigation, but they do not justify your fleet threatening our homeworld. Drake stepped forward. This facility isn't unique, Counselor. We've identified 17 others, all operating under direct authority of the Council Inner Circle, and we've tracked the technology transfers resulting from these experiments, Winter continued. Advanced biotechnology suddenly appearing in Altharian medical devices. Neurological enhancements showing up in Krell warriors. Genetic modifications identical to those forced upon the Adari now being used by Viridian's own people. The evidence was damning. The Council members looked at one another, some with horror, others with guilt. A few with calculation. Why are you showing us this? Thelax asked finally. If your goal was simply to expose these violations, you could have broadcast this evidence across the galactic network. Because not all of you are involved, Ambassador Okafor said, entering the chamber. Our intelligence suggests this operation is controlled by a faction within the Council, the 7 founder species who have maintained control since its formation. We want justice for these crimes, Drake continued. But more importantly, we want truth. The full truth, which is why we demand access to the archives. We believe this program is merely the surface of a deeper corruption. You don't understand what you're asking, Viridian said, her voice suddenly weary, her skin fading to a dull gray. The archives contain information that could destabilize the entire galactic order. Perhaps that order needs destabilizing, Drake replied firmly. If it's built on exploitation and experimentation. Before Viridian could respond, alarms blared throughout the chamber. Morg burst in, his reptilian features tense. High Counselors, long-range sensors have detected a massive fleet emerging from hyperspace at the system's edge. It's the Krell Armada. Drake's eyes widened in genuine surprise. The Krell? That's impossible. Their fleet was supposed to be patrolling the Cygnus border. Those were false readings we fed your spies, Admiral, Zarn said with satisfaction. Did you think we were unaware of your intelligence operations? The Krell have been waiting just out of sensor range for precisely this scenario. Viridian's colors brightened to confident purple. Your fleet is impressive, Admiral Drake. But it cannot stand against the full might of the Krell Armada, 3,000 warships specifically designed to enforce Council will. Drake exchanged glances with his team. This was an unexpected development, one that could unravel everything they had planned. You have 20 minutes to order your ships to stand down and surrender, Viridian continued, or the Krell will open fire. And I assure you, Admiral, there will be no survivors. Commander Toshiro Nakamura stood at the viewport of the Council Station's Strategic Command Center, watching as the massive Krell armada emerged from hyperspace. 3,000 warships, their hulls bristling with weapons, arranged in perfect geometric formations that stretched as far as the eye could see. The Krell were feared throughout the galaxy as the Council's enforcers, ruthlessly efficient, unwaveringly loyal, and engineered specifically for warfare. Nakamura showed no outward sign of concern, though the Krell force outnumbered humanity's fleet by nearly 5-1. He was a compact man with precise movements and watchful eyes that missed nothing. His calm demeanor had earned him the nickname the Glacier among Earth's military, cold, patient, and unstoppable once in motion. "Magnificent, isn't it?" said Counselor Zarn, moving to stand beside him. The Ultharian's metal exoskeleton clicked and whirred. "The Krell have never lost a battle in 8,000 years. Your species' rebellion ends today." Nakamura turned slightly, studying Zarn's alien features. "You misunderstand, Counselor. This isn't a rebellion. Oh, your fleet threatens our homeworld. You make impossible demands. What would you call it?" "A test," Nakamura replied simply. Before Zarn could respond, the door slid open. Admiral Drake and Dr. Winter entered, flanked by Sentinel guards. Ambassador Okafor followed, engaged in intense conversation with Counselor Thelax. "The Krell Armada has taken position," announced Morg, the Council's security chief. "They await your command, High Counselor." Viridian's skin glowed with confident amber as she addressed Drake. "Your 20 minutes are nearly expired, Admiral. Order your fleet to stand down or face annihilation." Drake glanced at Nakamura, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. "Before you make a decision you can't unmake," Drake said carefully, "there's something you should understand about our fleet." He gestured to Nakamura, who stepped forward and activated the command center's main tactical display. It showed the human fleet in orbit around the Council homeworld. "Observe," Nakamura said, entering a command sequence on the display. The human vessels began to execute a series of precise maneuvers, rearranging themselves into an unusual pattern that made no tactical sense. Some ships moved to positions that left them vulnerable, while others clustered in tight formations. "What is this?" Viridian demanded. "Some kind of surrender formation?" "Just watch," Drake replied quietly. As the Council members observed in confusion, Nakamura entered a final command. Without warning, exactly half of the human ships flickered. Their images destabilized briefly, then restabilized, now appearing slightly translucent. "What trickery is this?" Zarn demanded. "No trickery," Nakamura explained calmly. "Simply technology you believed impossible for a young species like ours. Half of our fleet isn't really there." "Holograms?" Morg asked incredulously. "Advanced quantum entangled projections," Dr. Winter corrected. "Indistinguishable from real ships on sensors, capable of emitting false energy signatures and even appearing to maneuver independently." "But why?" Viridian began, then stopped as comprehension dawned on her features. "You wanted us to call the Krell?" Drake nodded. "Every apparent violation of Council directives over the past decade was calculated to provoke exactly this response. You seeing us as a threat, the emergency summons of the Krell Armada. But your real fleet is still vastly outnumbered," Zarn pointed out, metal faceplates shifting in what humans had learned to recognize as confusion. "Numbers aren't everything," Nakamura said quietly. He touched his communicator. "Admiral Voss, execute Phase 3. In space, the genuine human vessels suddenly activated previously concealed systems. Waves of invisible energy pulsed outward, washing over the Krell Armada. On the tactical display, the Krell ships suddenly stopped their advance. Many began to drift, their formation disintegrating. "What have you done?" Viridian demanded, her skin flashing alarmed patterns of red and white. "We've temporarily disrupted the control link between the Krell and their masters," Dr. Winter explained. "You see, we discovered something fascinating about the Krell. They aren't a natural species at all." She activated a holographic display showing the internal biology of a Krell warrior. It revealed an intricate network of artificial components integrated with organic tissue. "They're constructs," Winter continued. "Bioengineered soldiers with neural control systems that can be overridden remotely, created by the founder races as weapons and enforcers." The council chamber fell silent. Many of the non-founder counselors looked shocked by this revelation. "That's impossible," Thelax said, forearms gesturing in agitation. The Krell have been members of the Council for millennia. They have representatives, a homeworld. A fabrication, Drake said firmly. One of many maintained by the founder races. The Krell homeworld is a military installation. Their representatives are puppets, programmed to vote as directed. Ambassador Okafor stepped forward. For 10,000 years, the founders have maintained control through fear of the Krell. Obey council directives, or face the Armada. But the Krell aren't an independent species with fearsome military might. They're weapons, created and controlled by the founders themselves. The non-founder counselors looked at their colleagues from the 7 founder species with new suspicion. Even if what you claim is true, Viridian said, struggling to maintain composure as her skin fluctuated between colors, it doesn't change your situation. You've committed an act of war against the Council. No, Drake corrected. We've exposed a deception that has been used to control the galaxy for 10 millennia, and we're offering a choice. He nodded to Nakamura, who activated a new display. This one showed the positions of human stealth vessels throughout Council space, hundreds of them, each positioned near critical infrastructure, military bases, and communication hubs. While your attention was focused on our visible fleet, our stealth ships took position near every major Council facility, Drake explained. We've mapped your entire power structure, including secret installations not on official records. You're bluffing, Zarn growled. No species could penetrate our security so completely. Nakamura touched a control, and the display zoomed in on a specific location, deep beneath the Council chambers themselves. It showed a massive vault door marked with ancient symbols. The entrance to the Founders' archives, Nakamura said quietly, located 3.7 kilometers beneath this very building, accessible only through triple-secured transit tubes requiring genetic verification from all 7 founder representatives. The founder counselors looked genuinely shaken now. This level of intelligence penetration should have been impossible. How? Viridian whispered. We had help, Drake replied. Not everyone in this galaxy appreciates how the Council operates. At that moment, as if on cue, Counselor Thelax moved to stand beside the human delegation. For centuries, some of us have suspected the founders maintained control through deception and manipulation. But we lacked proof and the strength to challenge them. Until humanity came along, Okafor added. Young, aggressive, unwilling to accept arbitrary restrictions. Perfect candidates for alliance, Thelax concluded. More counselors rose from their seats, moving to stand with Thelax and the humans. Nearly half the Council, representing species from across the galaxy. What is the meaning of this? Viridian demanded, her composure finally breaking completely as her skin flashed chaotic patterns. Reform, Drake answered simply. For too long, the Council has operated in secret, manipulating member species, suppressing technological development, and eliminating threats to founder control. That ends today. He turned to address all present. Humanity doesn't want war. We want partnership, real partnership, not the illusion of equality while being manipulated and controlled. And if we refuse? Zarn asked, his metal form now tensed for conflict. Nakamura gestured to the display showing the disabled Krell fleet. Without your enforcers, do you really want to test our resolve, Counselor? Before Zarn could respond, an alarm sounded from Morg's security station. The reptilian scales bristled in alarm. Hi, Counselor. We've lost contact with the Krell command ship. Something is happening to their fleet. All eyes turned to the tactical display. Throughout the Krell armada, ships were powering up again, but not in their usual perfect formation. Some vessels were turning to face others, weapons charging. What have you done? Viridian demanded. Nothing more than we already explained, Winter replied, watching the display with scientific interest. We disrupted the control signals to the Krell neural network. Without those signals, they're developing independent thought, Thelax realized, 4 eyes widening. On the communication channels, voices suddenly emerged, Krell voices, but not with their usual crisp, artificial precision. These voices carried confusion, anger, and something never before heard from a Krell. Questioning, what are we? Who controls us? Why do we fight? Millions of sentient beings enslaved as living weapons for thousands of years, Drake said quietly. Imagine their reaction upon awakening to that reality. The council chamber descended into chaos as the implications became clear. The Krell, backbone of council military power, were effectively neutralized, either temporarily disabled or awakening to independence that made them unpredictable. Ambassador Nadia Okafor stood before the newly formed Transitional Council, her tall figure commanding attention despite the grandeur of the chamber. 3 days had passed since the historic vote that had fundamentally altered the power structure of galactic governance. The ornate council chamber, once dominated by the 7 founder species, now hosted representatives from all 57 member civilizations, seated as equals for the first time in 10,000 years. The transition will not be easy, Okafor addressed the assembly, her deep voice carrying natural authority. 10 millennia of hierarchy cannot be dismantled overnight, but today we take the first steps toward true galactic partnership. Behind her stood a diverse coalition. Admiral Drake and Commander Nakamura represented Earth's military. Dr. Winter led a multi-species scientific commission. And most surprisingly, several former Krell commanders stood as independent beings for the first time in their engineered existence. The mood in the chamber mixed tension with possibility. Some council members, particularly those from founder species, watched the proceedings with barely concealed resentment. Others seemed energized by the promise of reform. Our first task, Okafor continued, is establishing the Truth Commission. With access to the archives now granted, we must document the full history of council activities, both the achievements worthy of celebration and the abuses that must never be repeated. And who will judge what constitutes abuse? Asked Councillor Zarn. Though the Eltharian had lost much influence, he remained a powerful voice. Humans, with your limited understanding of cosmic history, you cannot comprehend the dangers the founders protected you from, which is precisely why the Commission includes representatives from 23 species, Councillor, Dr. Winter replied calmly. No single perspective will dominate the investigation. Before Zarn could respond, the chamber's massive doors slid open. A figure entered whom few present recognized, tall and gaunt, with iridescent skin similar to Viridian's but bearing intricate patterns that seemed to shift and flow independently of emotion. The newcomer wore simple robes bearing ancient symbols that even the chamber's advanced translation systems couldn't interpret. The founder representatives immediately rose from their seats, expressions showing a mixture of shock and deference. Archivate Luminex, Viridian whispered, her skin paling to astonished white. You never leave the archive depths. The being called Luminex surveyed the chamber, eyes lingering on the human delegation. Unprecedented events demand unprecedented responses, Luminex said, voice resonating with harmonics that seemed to bypass the ears and speak directly to the mind. I have observed your reformation, the first significant change to council structure since the Severance War. Drake stepped forward. You're the keeper of the archives. Luminex inclined his head slightly. For 7,000 cycles I have maintained the records of all that was, all that is, and some glimpses of what may yet be. I have watched civilizations rise and fall. I have preserved knowledge too dangerous to be widely shared. Then you oppose our reforms, Drake concluded. To everyone's surprise, Luminex's skin flickered with patterns suggesting amusement. I neither oppose nor support. I observe and preserve, but I have come to issue a warning. The chamber fell silent. Even the most skeptical council members leaned forward. You seek access to the archives, Luminex continued. You believe they contain evidence of founder manipulation. You are correct but incomplete in your understanding. The archives contain far more, including information about threats beyond your comprehension. What threats? Commander Nakamura asked directly. The reason the council was formed, Luminex replied. The reason technological development has been carefully managed. The reason some regions of space remain forbidden, some technologies restricted, some knowledge sealed even from most founders. The Archivate's gaze swept the chamber. You humans believe the council's structure was designed for control and power. Partially true, but its deeper purpose was containment and vigilance against a threat that nearly destroyed all sentient life in this galaxy 12,000 years ago. Councillor Thelax rose, forearms gesturing in agitation. Archivate, with respect, these matters were sealed by the original covenant. Not even current council members are privy to the details you reference. The Covenant presumed the Council structure would remain intact, Luminex countered. That presumption is now void. These beings have demanded truth. They should understand what truth they seek. Dr. Winter stepped forward, scientific curiosity overriding diplomatic caution. What destroyed galactic civilization 12,000 years ago? Luminex's skin darkened to deep indigo. Not what. Who? The precursors. The term seemed to strike the founder representatives like a physical blow. Several visibly recoiled. The original architects of interstellar civilization, Luminex continued. Beings of such advanced technology and intellect that they reshaped worlds with thought, traveled between galaxies with ease, and eventually attempted to transcend physical existence entirely. What happened to them? Drake asked. They succeeded, Luminex stated simply, and in doing so they became something beyond comprehension. Something that viewed their former physical selves and all other physical beings as irrelevant variables in their new existence. Dr. Winter's eyes widened with understanding. They tried to eradicate physical life. Not tried. Nearly succeeded, Luminex corrected. 12,000 years ago, 93% of all sentient species in this galaxy were extinguished in what your records would call the Great Darkness. Only the combined efforts of the 7 most technologically advanced surviving species, the Founders, managed to create a dimensional barrier containing the transcended precursors. The chamber erupted in shocked discussion. Admiral Drake exchanged glances with his team, all processing this unexpected revelation. The Council's true purpose, Viridian said, finding her voice, has always been to maintain that containment, to prevent any species from developing technologies that might weaken the barrier, to ensure the precursors never return. And you kept this secret from most Council members? Okafor asked, incredulous. Knowledge of the precursors has historically led civilizations to one of 2 dangerous paths, Luminex explained. Either attempting to harness their technology for power, inadvertently weakening the barriers, or mass panic leading to civilization collapse. The Founders chose selective disclosure. Drake's expression hardened. Convenient that this selective disclosure also maintained your power structure and kept other species dependent on your protection. Both purposes were served, Luminex acknowledged with surprising candor. The methods were imperfect, occasionally corrupt. Power structures inevitably degrade over millennia, but the primary containment has held. The revelation created a new tension in the room. The promised transparency of the new Council order suddenly carried potentially catastrophic implications. Why tell us this now? Nakamura asked the Archivist directly. Because you have changed the equation, Luminex replied. Humans have demonstrated technological capabilities that should have been beyond your development stage. Your quantum manipulation technologies in particular operate on principles dangerously similar to those used in the containment barriers. Dr. Winter stepped forward, her scientific mind racing. Are you suggesting our technology might weaken this containment? I am stating with certainty that it already has, Luminex said gravely. The statement fell like a physical weight on the chamber. Founder representatives looked vindicated, others horrified. The disruption field you used against the Krell created ripples in the dimensional barrier, Luminex continued. Minor, currently containable but measurable. The archives registered the first breach in 8,000 years. Admiral Voss, who had joined the proceedings via holographic projection from the Defiance, spoke up for the first time. Are you saying our defensive action against the Krell endangered the galaxy? I am saying that humanity's technological path is proceeding in directions the Council has specifically prevented for thousands of years, with good reason, Luminex clarified. Your species has developed in isolation, without understanding the cosmic context of your innovations. Drake's jaw tightened. So we're back to humans must be controlled for their own good? Not controlled. Informed, Luminex corrected. The archives must be opened, selectively and carefully, so humanity understands the true stakes of technological development in this galaxy. Ambassador Okafor, ever the diplomat, saw the path forward. A compromise, then. The Truth Commission proceeds, but with Archivate Luminex guiding our access to ensure we don't inadvertently endanger the containment barriers. And what about Council reform? Asked Counselor Thelax. Does this revelation mean returning to Founder dominance? No, Drake said firmly. The need for containment doesn't justify the abuses we've uncovered. The evolutionary acceleration programs, the suppression of developing species, The Krell enslavement. We can maintain vigilance without tyranny. Luminex studied Drake with ancient eyes. An untested hypothesis, Admiral, but perhaps worth exploring. The old methods have grown corrupted over time, as you discovered. Fresh perspectives may identify better approaches to our shared survival. Dr. Ilara Winter stood before the massive archive door, its surface inscribed with symbols that seemed to shift and change when viewed directly. 2 weeks had passed since Archivate Luminex's shocking revelation about the precursors. 2 weeks of careful negotiations, tense meetings, and the gradual establishment of the new council structure. Now the moment of truth had arrived. The archives would be open not just to a select few founders, but to representatives from all council species, including humans. Are you prepared, Doctor? Luminex asked, his iridescent skin displaying patterns of solemn blue. What lies beyond cannot be unseen or unknown once experienced. Winter nodded firmly. She was accompanied by a team of 12 researchers from different species, each selected for specific expertise. Admiral Drake and Commander Nakamura stood behind them, representing Earth security interests. We understand the gravity of this access, Winter replied, and we appreciate your guidance, Archivate. Luminex inclined his head slightly. The archives contain knowledge spanning millions of years. Focus your initial inquiries on the precursor containment protocols. Understanding the nature of what we face must precede any other investigations. The archive door began to move, not swinging open as expected, but somehow folding inward upon itself in geometrically impossible ways. The researchers exchanged nervous glances as reality seemed to bend around the entrance. The archives exist partially outside conventional space-time, Luminex explained, noting their reactions. A necessity for storing certain types of information. Follow closely, maintain physical contact with one another, and speak your name clearly if you feel your perception beginning to fragment. As the research team entered, Admiral Voss was facing a different challenge aboard the Defiance. The human fleet remained in orbit around the Council homeworld, now as peacekeepers rather than invaders, but their presence still created tension. Admiral, we're receiving an unusual transmission, reported her communications officer. It's coming from the far side of the Krell Armada. Put it through, Voss ordered, straightening her uniform. A holographic display materialized, showing a Krell commander. Unlike the precisely identical warriors humans had encountered before, this one showed signs of individuality, decorative markings on its exoskeleton and eyes that held unmistakable intelligence rather than programmed obedience. Admiral Voss, the Krell began, voice lacking the artificial precision of previous encounters. I am Sentinel Prime Krell Vex 473, or simply Vex as I now choose to be called. Voss nodded respectfully. Sentinel Prime, how may I assist you? I speak on behalf of the Liberation Consensus. 817 Krell vessels whose command neural networks have successfully transitioned to autonomous operation. 800 ships, Voss repeated, impressed despite herself. That's more than we estimated could break free from the control systems. Your disruption technology was more effective than anticipated, Vex acknowledged. However, many of our kind remain in partial autonomy or complete servitude. We request assistance. This was a development none of the human strategists had fully anticipated. The plan had been to temporarily disrupt the Krell command network as a tactical advantage. The emergence of truly independent Krell was an unforeseen consequence. What kind of assistance? Voss asked cautiously. Technical expertise to replicate your disruption field. Medical knowledge to permanently sever the control implants without damaging our cognitive functions and... The Krell hesitated. Diplomatic recognition as an independent species within the new council framework. Voss measured her response carefully. The first two requests are within our capability. The third will require council approval, but humanity would support your petition. Then perhaps we can offer something in exchange, Vex said. Information about council activities that even your intelligence operations didn't uncover, including details about the precursor containment that Archivate Luminex may be selectively presenting. Voss's cybernetic eye narrowed slightly. You know about the precursors? The Krell were created specifically to serve as frontline defenders against potential containment breaches, Vex explained. Our neural architecture contains sealed information packages, accessible only under certain conditions. Your disruption field partially unlocked these archives within some of us. This changed everything. Voss immediately opened a secure channel to Admiral Drake, who had just entered the archive chamber with the research team. Meanwhile, deep within the impossibly vast archive complex, Dr. Winter and her team were experiencing reality in ways their minds could barely process. The archives weren't simple data storage. They were a multi-dimensional construct where information existed as tangible, interactive environments. Focus on your research parameters, Luminex guided them. Allow the archive to respond to your inquiry about precursor containment. Winter concentrated, and the impossible space around them shifted. They found themselves standing on what appeared to be a vast observation platform overlooking the galaxy itself, but somehow viewed from outside conventional space. "Is this real?" asked Trelkar, a crystalline researcher from a silicon-based species. "As real as anything can be when viewed from 9-dimensional space," Luminex replied. "This is a perceptual interface allowing limited comprehension of trans-universal boundaries." Across the galaxy model, Winter could see glowing barrier lines, intricate networks of energy containing what appeared to be tiers in the fabric of space itself. Each tier shimmered with colors that hurt to look at directly. "The containment barriers," Luminex explained. 12,000 years of continuous maintenance and reinforcement by founder technologies. Drake stepped forward, military training keeping him focused despite the mind-bending environment. "And these tiers? They're access points the precursors could use to return?" "In simplified terms, yes," Luminex confirmed. "When the precursors transcended physical existence, they created ruptures in the dimensional boundaries. The barriers prevent them from re-establishing connection to our reality." Winter noticed something concerning. Several of the barrier sections were visibly weaker, their glow flickering and unstable. "The containment is failing in these regions," she observed. "Correct," Luminex acknowledged. "Maintaining the barriers requires specific technologies and constant vigilance. As certain founder civilizations declined or became complacent, sections of the containment weakened." "So the threat is real," Drake said quietly. "Not a fabrication to justify council control." "Very real, Admiral," Luminex confirmed. However, the Archivate was interrupted by an urgent communication from the Defiance. Admiral Voss's holographic form materialized beside them, somehow maintaining coherence even in the strange archive environment. "Admiral Drake, we have critical information from the Krell," Voss reported. "The precursor threat is real, but the founders have been lying about its nature and the containment requirements." Luminex's skin patterns shifted to alarmed crimson. "This discussion should not occur within the archive. Security protocols, override protocols authorization Winter Epsilon 7, Dr. Winter stated firmly. To everyone's surprise, the archive environment acknowledged her command. "Stabilizing around them." "How did you?" Luminex began, genuinely shocked. "We've had access to fragments of archive coding for years," Winter explained. "Enough to create limited bypass commands. We suspected we might need them." Drake turned to Voss's projection. "What have the Krell told you?" "The precursors aren't trying to destroy physical life," Voss reported. "They're trying to communicate with it. The Great Darkness 12,000 years ago wasn't an extinction event, it was a failed first contact attempt." The revelation stunned everyone present. Winter immediately turned to the galactic display, studying the containment barriers with new eyes. "These aren't defensive barriers," she realized aloud. "They're isolation fields. The founders didn't protect the galaxy from the precursors. They cut off all contact with them. Because the precursors offered something that would have undermined founder control," came a new voice. Everyone turned to see Commander Nakamura, who had been silently analyzing the archive display. "Technological uplift. Evolutionary advancement. Freedom from physical limitations. Precisely why this information has remained restricted," Luminex said, his composure returning. "The choice between physical existence and transcendence is not one to be made lightly or under duress." "But it should be a choice," Drake countered. "Not a decision made by 7 species for the entire galaxy." The archive chamber fell silent as the implications settled. Finally, Dr. Winter stepped toward the galactic display, her scientific curiosity overriding caution. "Can we see them?" she asked Luminex. "The precursors. Can the archive show us what they've become?" Luminex's skin patterns expressed hesitation. Such visualization is possible but potentially dangerous to unprepared minds. We need to understand what we're really dealing with, Drake insisted, not just the founder's interpretation. After a moment's consideration, Luminex nodded. Archive Display Precursor Entity Visualization, Minimal Interface Protocol. The galaxy model dissolved, replaced by something else. Something that existed in too many